If Thai horror is bone-chilling terror, then this movie, Phobia, crafted by 4 top Thai directors, will absolutely push your psychological limits. With 4 stories and 4 curses, it makes you experience a continuous, heart-stopping, suffocating fear. Without further ado, let's dive right into the first story. The short-haired girl leaning by the window is our main character. A car accident 3 months ago left her leg in a thick cast. Not only is she unable to work and make money, but her short-tempered landlady also constantly comes to demand rent. Until one night, while the bored girl plays on her computer, a text from a stranger suddenly arrives on her phone. At first, she thinks it is her best friend wanting to chat, but when she excitedly opens her phone and takes a closer look, it is actually a strange number. The screen says that the person wants to be friends with her. Seeing this, she simply chooses to ignore it. Whatever, after a short while, the other person sends another message saying they want to chat. Seeing no malice in the text, she cannot help but reply to the message. Soon, through their conversation, she learns that the other person is a man. The girl feels a bit excited since she has been single for so long and finally gets a lucky break in her love life during this rough patch. Just like that, the two get to know each other through constant texting. After this, the more they chat, the more they click. The guy is warm and caring, and he truly understands her loneliness. The girl gradually lets her guard down. The two become each other's emotional support system. She starts staying glued to her phone every day, waiting for his texts. Whenever her phone buzzes, she grabs it instantly, terrified of missing a single message. But the good times do not last. Driven by curiosity about his voice, she tries calling his number. Strangely enough, his phone never goes through. This leaves her completely baffled. That is until he texts her, explaining that his place is super cramped with barely any cell service. So she lets it slide. Bonding over their shared isolation, she opens up to him about her car accident and how she has been stuck inside, unable to walk for 3 months. Hearing this, the man immediately sends comforting words to cheer her up. He drops some cliches about surviving a disaster to bring good fortune, making her burst into giggles with just a few words. Anyone who has tried online dating knows that when the sparks fly, it is time to ask for a photo. After all, online dating is like opening a mystery box, and the chance of total disappointment is as high as 99.99%. To make a great first impression, she gets all dolled up and sends over her selfie first. But when she asks him for a picture in return, he sends her own selfie right back, completely confusing her. She angrily texts him to ask what he means, but he quickly replies, telling her to look closer because he is right there in the photo. Only then does she study the picture closely, and there really seems to be a faint outline of a man's face, but she cannot see it clearly. Besides, no one was next to her when she took that selfie, and the more she thinks about it, the more terrified she gets, so she puts her phone down and stops replying. The next day arrives in a flash, and feeling bad about suddenly ghosting him last night, she tries to call his phone to explain. But there is still no answer on his end, so with nothing else to do, she just opens her computer. Soon, a post catches her attention. It features a recent news story. The report states that locals chant scriptures for 100 days to deliver the souls of the deceased. If the deceased committed suicide, a cell phone must be placed inside the coffin to keep them from getting too lonely or wanting to call home. This information, about 100 days and a cramped space, is shockingly similar to the descriptions in the man's text. The girl opens her phone again to look through their past messages. She also studies that creepy selfie intently, trying to get a clear look at the man's face. But this action seems to anger something. Immediately after, the desk lamp suddenly goes out. Her phone is thrown by a mysterious force and slides right under the bed. With her injured leg, she cannot reach the phone at all. Left with no choice, she turns around with difficulty to find a tool to grab it. But the next second, the phone automatically slides right back in front of her and rings loudly. Fighting back her fear, she opens the phone to find a text from the man. He demands to know what she is afraid of and even asks to meet up. A wave of pure terror instantly floods her mind. She immediately refuses his request, lying that her boyfriend is home, so it is not convenient. But the man claims he knows she is alone because he is looking right at her from the entrance, and he says he is coming upstairs right now to check. The man's terrifying reply makes her ignore her physical pain and quickly lock all the doors and windows, hoping to escape this nightmare. However, very soon, the hallway lights go out, one by one, plunging her room into total darkness. She has no choice but to lift her phone, hoping to use the screen light to see her surroundings, But the moment she looks at the screen, something creepy happens. On the screen, there is actually a clear photo of her and the man standing close together intimately. Even though they have never met before, she finally realizes at this moment that the man she had been chatting with for days is not a living person. But it is already too late, as the man teleports into the room, catches her off guard, and pushes her out the window, killing her on the spot. Almost at the same time, the man's hearse passes by outside, scattering joss paper, revealing them. After he received a breakup text from his girlfriend. In a moment of desperation, he chooses to run into traffic, meeting a tragic end. The girl happens to be riding in that exact car. So after the man dies, he stalks her through texts, wanting her to join him in the underworld. With her sudden demise, the second story of the movie, Deadly Charm, begins. One day, the honest boy is riding his bike to visit his bedridden father. But on the way, a few thugs corner him and drag him onto a big truck for a brutal beating. They use him as a punching bag because they believe he snitched to the principal about them smoking when he retrieved his stolen laptop, which almost got them expelled. Led by a rich kid, the thugs get more furious the more they think about it, so they track him down for revenge. Facing the aggressive crowd, the boy keeps pleading his innocence and claims he never snitched. His explanation only makes things worse, earning him another brutal assault. A female classmate watching nearby feels upset by their actions, but since she cannot easily intervene, she chooses to just watch coldly. The helpless boy is beaten by them until his face is covered in blood. Even so, the thugs are still not satisfied. They even take out a lighter to burn his eyebrows. The boy rolls around on the ground in pain. His beloved bike is also thrown off the road by the thugs and shatters into pieces. Seeing the boy so desperate, the thugs are overjoyed. They even threaten to throw the boy off the truck as well. Anyone who watches horror movies knows that once a character sets a death flag, it always comes true. During the struggle with the thugs, the boy accidentally falls off the big truck. Seeing that he caused a major disaster, the leader drives away immediately to escape. However, the good times do not last. One day, the thugs are hiding in the school utility room playing cards, but they never expect that the boy would actually survive. He walks in through the door, holding a thick stack of notebooks. This completely terrifies the thugs on the spot. Among them, David, the thug who burned the boy's eyebrows, strikes first by rushing forward, grabbing the boy's collar, and slamming him down. Caught off guard, the boy is sent flying. At the same time, the notebooks he brought slide right to the feet of a female classmate. The thug demands to know why he is not staying hidden after getting a beating. But the boy somehow finds the courage to completely change his cowardly ways, cursing the thugs to a brutal death while crying tears of blood. At this moment, the curious girl picks up the notebook at her feet to take a look, only to be driven into a complete panic by its contents. She accidentally falls onto the iron rack behind her and is instantly impaled by a steel bar, suffering horrific consequences. Watching the girl scream in pain, the boy stares with bloodshot eyes and laughs hysterically with joy. That piercing laughter triggers the rich kid, who shoves the boy away, causing him to stumble and crash into the iron rack. The notebook the girl dropped on it earlier falls down at that exact moment and lands right on the boy. The moment he sees the notebook, the boy acts as if he is possessed and frantically lunges at the rich kid. Completely ticked off by this, the rich kid gives a hard shove, causing the already frail boy to trip over some lumber on the ground and plunge straight off the building. Just like that, the boy dies a horribly brutal death. Then, while the girl still has a breath left, the others work together to rush her to the hospital for emergency treatment. But unfortunately, she ultimately passes away on the way due to excessive blood loss. As her boyfriend, David cries so hard he can barely breathe. When everyone is at a loss, David suddenly remembers a strange incident. One time, he and his girlfriend wanted to get intimate in the school library, but they accidentally caught the boy casting a spell on a notebook. Since the boy's father is in the funeral business, he grew up learning a bit of witchcraft himself. Back then, the boy used his own blood to cover the notebook with deadly curses, meaning anyone who looks at it dies. But one of the thugs refuses to believe it and insists on pulling out the notebook to investigate. But the next second, an accident happens. As the cursed page drifts in the wind, the guy with glasses worries the leader might look, so he rushes forward to stop him, but this causes them both to lose their footing and fall off the building. The guy with glasses lands right on a vending machine and dies on the spot. Although the leader luckily survives, when he stands up, he is completely surrounded by scattered pages. Hearing the leader's screams from below, the only unharmed girl rushes downstairs in a panic to check on him. But the moment she gets down there, she is stunned to see the boy's ghost pointing the cursed page right at the leader, and when the ghost sees her arrive, the boy twists his head in a creepy way. Suddenly, the building behind the girl instantly explodes. The rich kid knows he cannot escape his fate. He looks at the boy calmly and delivers a late apology. However, he does not get the boy's forgiveness. The next second, he is consumed by a sea of fire. The girl is also left completely speechless by the sight, but the ghost does not seem to plan on letting her off. He questions her as he walks toward her and tries to trap her with the pages. Luckily, the police arrive just in time to save her. A moment later, she tells the police everything she saw and heard in full detail. But the police do not believe a notebook can kill. They just tell her to sit tight and wait for her parents to pick her up. However, after a short while, she, sitting alone in the interrogation room, sees the ghost sitting right across from her, flipping through the deadly notebook. Seeing this, she immediately begs him to spare her life since she did not hurt him back then. The ghost completely rejects her ridiculous excuse and forces her to open her eyes and look at the notebook. This continues until the interrogating officer returns, only to see a terrifying sight. She claws her own eyes out just to avoid looking at the notebook. She even goes as far as completely blinding her own eyes, hoping to atone for her sins this way and earn a chance to live. With that, the second story ends. Next up is the third story, In the Middle. One day, 4 close friends go camping out in the wild. He says he has a friend who used to camp here a lot and especially loved sleeping on the side of the tent. But it is exactly because of this habit that his friend runs into a female ghost who drowned nearby. Hearing this, the cowardly boy sleeping on the edge instantly panics and asks to switch places with the guy sleeping in the middle. But his bad friends ignore his request and turn him down, claiming they are too tired. Meanwhile, another guy sleeping on the edge jokes that if he drowns like the female ghost, he will return to the camp in the middle of the night to sleep right between his brothers. They think it is just a joke, but it unexpectedly comes true later. The next morning, the 4 of them go kayaking down the river, and the rushing rapids get them more and more excited as they play. As a result, they lose control of the kayak. It flips over, and all 4 of them plunge into the water. Fortunately, after a desperate struggle, 3 of the guys successfully make it ashore, except for the guy who told the ghost story last night, who is still in the water and sinking deeper and deeper. Seeing this, the best swimmer among them jumps back into the water immediately to save him without a second thought. Although the storyteller is saved in the end, the brave swimmer completely disappears into the rushing river. Back at the camp, the 3 remaining guys become unusually silent. Only one of them firmly believes their friend is not dead. He keeps comforting the others, telling them that now is not the time to be discouraged. They should get some good rest and continue searching for their friend first thing tomorrow morning. But when it comes to choosing their sleeping spots, the 3 guys hit a snag. No one wants to sleep in the middle, terrified that the joke from yesterday might come true and Ghost would come back to take the middle spot at night. To recharge their energy, the 3 of them simply sleep in a triangle formation. This way, there is no issue of who sleeps on the edge or who sleeps in the middle. However, in the middle of the night, eerie footsteps echo outside the tent, and as the zipper slowly opens, their missing friend actually walks back in. The 3 boys excitedly gather around to check on their friend's condition. Until a moment later, one of them starts to have serious doubts. Unable to sleep, he gets up to smoke and talk with his friend, wondering why the guy has absolutely no scratches after struggling in the river for so long, which clearly makes no sense to 1982. But his friend does not take it seriously at all, just glad that his buddy returned safe and sound. Meanwhile, a sudden violent coughing sound echoes from inside the tent. This quickly wakes up the boy sleeping on the other side, who gets up to check and finds water constantly pooling around the pillow. Worried that he might choke, he frantically rolls his friend over. Just like that, the boy wakes up from the nightmare and realizes it is all just a dream. He looks at his friend sleeping soundly across from him, feeling an indescribable fear deep down. In the end, he decides to walk out of the tent to chat with the other 2 guys outside. Seeing that they both suspect the friend inside the tent is already dead, the furious guy directly snaps at them for being total cowards. Even if he does not believe Maru, Maru still drowns just to save A. A is left completely speechless by his words and immediately suggests going to the nearby riverbank to take a leak to clear his mind. However, before A can even walk far, he is stopped by Maru, who just wakes up. He offers to go along with A and tells Shin to stay in the tent to look after Tur. Hearing this, A can't really refuse, so he just follows closely behind Maru. But soon, something creepy happens. A large amount of water suddenly starts soaking through Maru's originally dry collar. A can't believe his eyes at that moment. He asks Maru if he is hot and why he is sweating so much. Maru just nods blankly without saying a single word. At this moment, A finally realizes that Maru is truly dead. Terrified, he quickly pulls up his pants, bolts back to the camp, and luckily manages to safely scramble inside the tent. Then he tells Shin and Tur everything he just witnesses. The three of them instantly throw themselves into a total panic, staying on high alert for Maru's ghost to return. Unexpectedly, as soon as they turn their heads, the guys tumble backward in terror, rolling several times along with the tent, leaving completely ruined. Left with no choice, the three of them break free from the wreckage and bolt. Unfortunately, A accidentally trips while running away, sending his glasses flying. Being severely nearsighted, he can only blindly fumble through the pile of dead leaves. Just then, a figure appears in front of him and hands him his lost glasses. Filled with confusion, A asks who it is. The person claims to be Shin. Only then does A dare to reach out and take the glasses. But the moment he puts them on, he is completely dumbfounded, because the person standing right in front of him is clearly Maru, completely bloated from the river water. Terrified once again, A turns and bolts. Luckily, he stumbles into the right direction this time and finally reunites with Shin and Tur. The three of them immediately decide to take the kayak by the river to leave this place first. To their surprise, when they get to the riverbank, they stumble upon Maru's remains again. Looking at the remains, A hatches a plan. He keeps calling out Maru's name, trying to get him to look at his own corpse. This is to make him realize that he is already dead. Very soon, his voice actually summons his friend over. The friend stands on the opposite side of the river, watching him. Fighting back his inner fear, he reaches directly into the water to pull out the corpse, wanting to turn its face over to show it to the ghost. But the two people next to him seem to notice something, and with looks of utter disbelief, they warn him that the face on the corpse is actually his own. The other two guys nearby are also driven into a complete panic by this sight, unable to help but wonder whether they are living humans or ghosts. At this moment, the ghost reveals the truth. It turns out that when they were kayaking that day, all four of them drowned in the river. Yet not a single one of them realized they were dead, and they even returned to the camp as if nothing happened. He only discovered his companion's remains in the river when he accompanied his friend to take a leak. But after his friend saw the body, he was already scared away and completely failed to notice that everyone else's corpses were also floating on the water. Everything he does is actually to lure everyone to the riverbank to face the facts and calmly accept the truth of their own deaths. With this, the third story ends. Next up is the final story of the movie, Flight 224. The story revolves around a beautiful flight attendant named Pim. This time, she has to serve a private flight. He has to serve the recently divorced Princess Sophia, and facing her arrogant behavior, she no choice but to swallow her pride. As luck would have it, the blue sapphire ring on her hand is surprisingly identical to the princess's ring. This foreshadows what is to come. To avoid drawing her attention, she immediately covers it with her hand, terrified of upsetting her. She even runs to the restroom to take the ring off. However, the ring is way too tight, and she cannot get it off no matter what. In the end, she can only flip the ring around and force herself to go back. During the service, the arrogant princess deliberately spills the scalding hot coffee onto her hand. Even though she is fuming inside, she cannot easily make a scene in public. She takes her revenge while brewing a fresh cup of coffee for the princess by adding a nasty secret ingredient using her high heel. But the princess is always one step ahead. The princess seems to see through the unusual coffee from the start and chooses to ignore it completely. She even orders her to take off the ring on her hand. Then, she gives her a meaningful look and tells her that in her country, any loose girl who dares to have an affair will end up completely humiliated. Even if she is penalized by the public under such torture, it will hardly appease the outrage. After saying this, the princess stomps on the ring under her foot. Then she demands that she prepare a meal for her. In the kitchen, she looks through the princess's dietary restriction list. She discovers that the princess has a severe allergic reaction to shrimp. She originally intends to pick the shrimp out, but remembering how the princess constantly makes her life miserable, she decides to let her eat the seafood pasta anyway. Sure enough, the princess quickly develops an allergic reaction. By the time she arrives, the princess runs straight to the restroom. At this moment, she happens to notice an intimate photo of herself and the princess's ex-husband on the seat. It turns out her affair as a side chick has already been discovered, which completely explains all the previous intentional bullying. Realizing all of this, she dares not stay any longer. She just puts the photo away But the moment she turns around, she bumps right into the returning princess. The princess glares at her fiercely with a malicious look. Feeling guilty, she does not hesitate and immediately leaves her sight. A moment later, they reach their destination, and she finally manages to get off the plane. She accidentally sees a news report on television stating that the princess passes away in a local hotel due to an allergic reaction. Her heart is instantly filled with mixed emotions. The princess's death causes a massive stir, so Thai officials must return her body to her home country as soon as possible. Since she is the flight attendant who last served the princess, she cannot get out of this repatriation flight and has to go. The scene cuts as the plane takes off normally. Inside the massive cabin, she is left completely alone with the princess's corpse. To make matters worse, the plane hits severe turbulence right after takeoff, causing the aircraft to shake violently. The princess's corpse, wrapped in a white shroud, gets thrown right out of her seat. Once the plane stabilizes, she crouches down to move the corpse back to its place, but a terrifying scene follows. This sudden sight instantly sends her into a complete panic. She quickly calls the captain for help, but when the call connects, she freezes, not knowing how to explain it without exposing her own dirty secrets. In the end, she still does not dare to say anything and hangs up the phone. After pulling her emotions together, she gathers her courage to move the princess's corpse back to its original spot and secures it tightly with a rope. After doing all this, just as she sits on the chair to rest, the plane shakes once again at this exact moment. She immediately looks around to check, and after confirming there is nothing abnormal, her racing heart finally settles down. However, the next second, with a loud bang, the princess's corpse suddenly appears right in her arms, and this terrifying scene instantly shocks her awake, revealing it is all just a dream. Still uneasy, she walks into the cabin to check. Next, she finds the white shroud used to wrap the corpse on the floor, and just as she holds it in her hands to examine it closely, a painful retching sound echoes from the restroom. But when she opens the door and walks inside, she finds absolutely nothing. She is completely overwhelmed facing these non-stop bizarre events. At this moment, the flight attendant can no longer hold back her breakdown and bursts into tears. But suddenly, the plane shakes violently once again and only stabilizes after a moment. Just as she prepares to step out, she is horrified to find herself locked inside the restroom. Right after, a retching sound comes from behind her and gets closer and closer. Terrified out of her wits, she frantically pounds on the door. Soon, she forcefully breaks the lock. She safely escapes from inside. But before she can even catch her breath, she gets hit by a fast-moving food cart. After managing to push it away, she turns around, only to see the princess's head. This series of scares drives her completely insane. Fortunately, she is stopped just in time by the captain, who rushes over. To prevent her from losing her mind further, the captain has no choice but to tie her to the seat. Then he returns to the cockpit alone. The flight attendant left behind is in a terrible situation since her seat faces the princess's core directly. At this moment, she feels completely hopeless. She keeps apologizing to the corpse, desperate to get her forgiveness. But in response, the white shroud on the princess's corpse slides off on its own, revealing her terrifying and hideous face. As the corpse vomits and approaches her, she shuts her eyes tight, not daring to face it. But strangely, the commotion in front of her suddenly stops. Opening her eyes in utter disbelief, she looks around and finds that the princess's corpse has completely vanished. Just when she thinks she is being let off the hook, a terrifying scene catches her eye. With this, the movie ends. Generally speaking, it is not just a horror movie, but more like 4 prophecies of life and death. Fear stems from the human heart, and karma begins with choices. Using the simplest setup, it delivers the most unforgettable thrills.